Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine. Two of us on the air today, me and Brian. The others maybe will be showing up a little later, or it may just be a hangover after that incredibly poor Browns performance yesterday. Well, we're going to be in the chair today talking about what happened to the Cleveland Browns, the aftermath of the game, and some other things that are happening around the league that might be of interest to people, may not be. First, I want to start out by explaining something regarding my feeling about the Browns. Hello, Mark Ross. How you doing? It's nice to see people starting to populate slowly, matriculate. There are special teams, and they're few and far between. And people start talking playoffs for teams when they have 5-2 records. And then they keep asking, are they going to make the playoffs when they're 5-3? And I want to define from my perspective, special teams do special things. And I want to say right off the bat, the Browns are not a special team. They're not a team o' destiny. And I will explain to you why. And I'll do it historically. Every sport that you can think of either starts with a transcendent player. We'll talk about the Chicago Bulls, who never won anything ever since Michael Jordan left. We can talk about LeBron James, who was just a transcendent basketball player, brought a title to Cleveland. We can talk about Magic Johnson and how he just stirred things up so much in Los Angeles that it made them a year after year contender. Larry Bird, who came in and changed the culture in Boston completely from a losing record to a consistent playoff and championship caliber team. That's basketball. And football, we can talk about the Steelers under Terry Bradshaw and Ben Roethlisberger. We can talk about there's a ton of them in football. I mean, teams that, the Green Bay Packers, of course, in the 60s. You can talk about the teams that are just special teams because not just one guy, but because the components of the team are balanced. And a lot of these teams, and we'll take the Boston Celtics of the 60s, the late 50s and 60s, with Bill Russell. Bill Russell was a great defensive basketball player, but the coach and the team and the owner of the team, and they were all on the same page and together for such a long period of time. They achieved the synchronicity. And that's what Tom Brady and the Patriots did. It's just this synchronicity. There have been teams like, Drew Brees and the Saints who won a Super Bowl. There are teams that win a Super Bowl, but there are special teams that win multiple Super Bowls. Then there are teams that are consistently in the playoffs, but never really get to that big game. Dan Marino and the Three Amigos and the Miami Dolphins come to mind. Good coach, really good coach, really great quarterback and great receiving core. But just they couldn't get over the hump. The Chargers with Dan Fouts, it was the same way. You got to have a team. You got to have a group of people in football, and it really starts with the quarterback. And a lot of it is good fortune. There may have been other great special transcendent quarterbacks in the league that never got to emerge because of injury. So if you have a long career as an NFL quarterback, you're fortunate right off the bat. Some guys like McCown, who are like 41 years old or whatever and still play quarterback and never won a damn thing. But having a long career is the first step. Injuries will kill any young career. So that and teams that don't have a steady quarterback can't become special teams. You could become a one-hit wonder, just like a lot of people on the Billboard charts, but it's really very difficult, playing musical chairs with quarterbacks, maybe Joe Montana to Steve Young, that kind of thing, because they kept the basic.
Well, a continuity of the coaching staffs and the front office also contribute to that too.
Right. I mean, in Cleveland, we've seen LeBron James as a transcendent athlete, Jim Brown as a transcendent athlete, and we've seen the '95 Cleveland Indians as a special team, even though they did not win the World Series. The fact of the matter is, any lineup, oh my God, that would have, Albert Bell and Jim Thome and Kenny Lofton and Omar Vizquel, and then Robbie Alomar later on. And, you're just looking.
They really got robbed from the '94 team, because I think
right,
that team had the best,
right.
chance to win.
Yeah, but I mean, and even on the pitching side of the ledger, we were consistently in the playoffs. Yeah, El Presidente at the end of his career, Dennis Martinez. We had Oral Hershiser at the end of his career, but they were crafty as all get out. We had a great
Charles Nagy.
Yeah, Charlie Nagy, and my God, we had a back end, of our bullpen too. And we could score runs, man. I mean, we were kind of like the Kansas City Chiefs of Major League Baseball. It was, but to be special, it takes time. First of all, it would be impossible to judge the Cleveland Browns based on, 8 games in a pandemic year with no practice. Okay. That's the first thing, and a new head coach and the whole thing. So do I think the Browns have the possibility of becoming a special team? No. Nope. I see no evidence of it. And there's a reason for that. And I'm not going to get into Baker Mayfield and all the things that, the talking heads want to talk about. The real thing is the track record of the ownership of the team and the constant changes of philosophy. And this presents problems in drafting, where, as far as where we're hit and miss, mainly miss. And, we're not filling our roster with necessary players, so that even if we do have a quarterback who is steady enough over time to take us somewhere, if you don't put in the defensive pieces of the puzzle, if you don't have linebackers in the AFC North, if you don't have defensive secondary, you're not going to become a special team. So before everybody gets all excited and starts saying, oh, believe me, the team is pissed off. Baker, as much as said so, the locker room's pissed off. They didn't play well. They had an opportunity to separate themselves, and they didn't do it. And the reason is they're not a special team. They're a team that the words that you would use to describe the Cleveland Browns at their best, they are efficient. Okay, that would be where we start. Hi, Tony. How you doing?
Nah, I'm in the car. Sorry, I'll join you. In the car for the first 20 minutes. I just got off of work, and then I'll hop on the computer. But.
Excellent, beautiful. So the first thing that comes to mind is efficient, and because everything is being done through analytics, and the offensive scheme is predicated on a lower risk offense in terms of turnovers, ball control, and running game, zone read, zone blocking, and and we got 2 really, really good running backs. I mean, really special running backs, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. These 2 guys are special players, and it's not that and Myles Garrett is a special player. He's a thoroughbred. He's not J.J. Watt, okay? He's a very athletic guy who really can wreak havoc, but isn't of a mindset to be a destructive missile. But he is a fine player, and maybe the preeminent pass rusher right now in the game. So we have that. We have Denzel Ward, who's a really good young defensive back. But when you go beyond that, all the years of misdrafting and changing directions, changing coaches, coaching staffs, schemes, and all of it, there's no chance that the Cleveland Browns right now are even approaching a status where you can be looking at them as maybe being a special team. Can they sneak into the playoffs? Yeah, I mean, and this is, a possibility. Do I think they're going to make the playoffs this year? No, I don't. And the reason I don't think so is because they're just not familiar enough with one another. We have an offensive line that is starting to gel, but let's be honest, one of the main components isn't there right now, and we're trying to get by with a backup in there, and we're trying to gel a young rookie who had a kind of an off night, so to speak, against the Raiders into the fold.
Wills.
That offensive line, if we stay healthy, should get better.
Yeah, and with Wyatt Teller coming back, that should make a big difference too, as far as the run. But the biggest one that has to come back is Nick Chubb, because yesterday he would have made a difference in that game. I firmly believe that having him run the ball 18, 20 times would have made a bigger difference than just Kareem Hunt alone.
We didn't even get to the wide receivers. We do have two special receivers. Odell Beckham Jr. is gone for the year, and his attitude will always be questioned. And the guy whose attitude should never be questioned, Jarvis Landry, who is a kind of team leader.
And let's hope he didn't re-break his ribs on that fucking nasty-ass hit in the back.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is a tough hombre, and he's the kind of guy, along with Nick Chubb, who lead by example. And I like guys like that, and you need more guys like that on the Cleveland roster. So, yeah, without those players, we would not be so good. We're going to bring Derek into the panel as well. Hi, Derek. How you doing?
Hey, what's going on?
This is the question a lot of people are asking. Do you think losing this game is going to screw us in the tiebreaker scenario? Look, every loss doesn't help you, but the fact is that big middle in the NFL requires you to keep winning. And a lot of these teams, like the Raiders, who just got done beating us, who are not a special team, may come back the following game and turn into the 67 yards a game rushing team all over again. The consistency factor is probably the single missing quotient in a lot of these teams. We got the Dolphins now, who have jumped into the fray, whose defense single-handedly turned a game around for a young rookie quarterback in his first start. But will the Dolphins, they could have a 3-game losing streak as easily as they could win 2 more in a row. I mean, the consistency factor isn't there for a lot of these teams. I just keep looking at the teams who are in the race, and there's so many of them, that no, I don't think losing this particular game screws our chances. I think our chances, as Sam Rutigliano would always say, our destiny is in our hands. I think that, you got to win football games. You got to beat the people you're expected to beat. And then you have to beat a couple teams that maybe you're on the edge. Maybe it's just, one of those things that it could go either way. And you need some good fortune, and you need to play large when you're playing good football teams. So no, I don't think this means that the Browns aren't going to make the playoffs. I think, in my opinion, they're not going to make the playoffs because there isn't enough talent on the roster. And I think it's evident when you see how we get pushed around that there isn't the kind of pull yourself up off the ground mentality we had halftime to get into the heads of the defensive front and say, would you please start playing with more dogged determination? That message did not get through, and it became worse in the second half. And that's what tells me that we're not a playoff.
And kudos to Tom Cable for getting his guys to go out there and just fucking beat the shit out of the Browns.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at, watching the game over a second time, and it's you don't see anything that you missed the first time. And the people who are trying to say that, Landry's was a catch, if the other one was a catch, no, Landry's was not. I mean, the second I saw the end zone camera on that highlight, I said, no, it's not a catch. I mean, and again, you're looking at something where control. And that's a question that a lot of people feel it's a judgment call. But that ball hit the ground and he was still transferring. And the other one, the ball hit the ground, but it didn't. There was no evidence, let's put it that way, of the ball moving beyond that. So for people looking for an excuse, no. The Browns just didn't score because they didn't have the ball, because the Raiders had the ball for most of the game, and the defense didn't show up. So that's that.
And two average running backs were made to look like fucking all pros.
Right. And, so I'll get this out of the way. We know that the Browns are conducting all of their football meetings remotely today because the word is that somebody showed up with COVID symptoms. And,
no, they called in from home and reported there.
With COVID symptoms. The one thing that we do know is that Njoku couldn't catch it. So
I told you it hit his hands, though. Still hit his hands. He just didn't catch it.
And, the thing that's disappointing about the loss, and it's the reason why we're not seeing more enthusiasm here on the program, is because everyone in their heart knows that we were no better than the Raiders, and the Raiders were no better than us. And we had this incredible great equalizer called the weather that made this a contest of wills as opposed to one of strategy. And the battle of wills is not something that you lose, and it doesn't bode well for you in the long term. Now, the Raiders might be able to turn it on and turn it off just as quickly, because I don't see them as being a playoff team either, to be honest with you. But what I do see is that teams that play more ruggedly and have a little bit more pep in their step have a better chance of day in, day out, week in, week out, having a winning performance. You cannot be up and down. And look, we could make the argument that the Browns should have lost to Cincinnati, save an incredible 1 minute and 6 second drive with no timeouts. We were going to lose that game. So the Browns defense has shown no proclivity to putting their foot down and stopping anybody this year.
My only frustrations with this game outside of our actual play, the Landry touchdown was incomplete, but I do think the Renfro was as well. Not saying that if one wasn't, the other was or whatever. I think they both weren't. My biggest problem is I don't know. I can't confirm this, but I think if you take both of those off the board, obviously Landry's, and then if you don't count Renfro's, at the end there, at least we would have had a chance to win. We didn't even have a chance. That's the most frustrating thing to me.
Yeah, and a lot of people will question things strategically. And, the thing that was funny about this is that I never got an answer when I tweeted out, if anyone could explain to me the logic of the coin flip for the game and what we chose to do, nobody would respond to that. And here's what I got. And I got it from John Gruden, believe it or not, who will never say anything bad about another coach, especially a first-year guy. But he said, well, the wind was so bad you didn't know which way it was blowing from. And it's like, no, you got to give me more than that, because the first field goal to put the Browns up, we had to intentionally kick a fucking line drive to get it through the goalpost. It was blowing so hard that way. And in the end of the game, and two kickers discovered that the right to left going that way down the field was far worse. Every kick that went down the other end of the field was straight as a fucking arrow. So please don't tell me this crap that's not true. The fact of the matter is, one end, I'm not saying either end was great, but one going one direction was better than the other. And we chose the worst ones to end the game in the fourth quarter, going the wrong way while giving the ball to the Raiders at the beginning of the game. It was bad coaching. John Gruden won't say it, but I'll say it.
Ironically, the only mainstream sports personality that I heard actually say this the right way was Colin Cowherd. Surprisingly, he said it's not on Mayfield for the loss and it's not on Carr for the win. Gruden took advantage of a first-year head coach, figured out what the weaknesses were on the Browns defense, and just pounded it down their throat. That simple. Which was surprising because you had people like Brandon Marshall. I don't know if you see my chat, who, I'm at work. I, listen to these 20-minute segments these people do, and he's saying, oh, Mayfield's done in Cleveland. Like, he's got no chance off of this game.
Yeah.
I was like, if Mayfield's done, then tell me what Derek Carr did. Neither quarterback could throw.
I'm going to really, the day before a presidential election, I'm going to throw, some people under the bus here, Brandon Marshall being one of them. If you want to come out and say that in his third year, Baker Mayfield has proven nothing and that he hasn't proven to be the guy that deserved to be, the one pick and all of that. If you're willing to make that assessment, that I want Brandon Marshall to get up on his feet, get up on his soapbox, and right into the microphone, look deadpan into the camera, and say, Lamar Jackson ain't ready yet. Yes, I am calling this race baiting. Absolutely, 100%.
Stephen A. Smith, too.
It's all crap. Brian and I were talking in the chat room before, and he was telling me Emmanuel Acho over at Fox was saying the same kind of shit. And, the fact of the matter is Lamar Jackson single-handedly lost to the Steelers. He threw 2 interceptions, one that went back to the house for 6, and fumbled the ball twice. And he hasn't won a playoff game in his life.
Or big games, period, not just playoffs.
And can't come back from behind.
And called Kansas City his kryptonite.
Called Kansas City his kryptonite, and his running game had over 200 yards against Pittsburgh, and it was he exclusively who lost the game for his team. Now, you don't hear anybody saying that shit, do you? You'll hear it here, not because I'm race baiting, but because I'm sick and tired of this crap that I see on television all the time.
You're hearing it in my state too today. There was a couple of black sports talk hosts in Minneapolis here who said a black quarterback would have never let his team win that game when it was obviously needed to tank. So they're claiming Kirk Cousins won the game because he's white.
Yeah, this is the kind of crap. And I hear it on television, the political stuff, and anybody who knows me knows what my record is and what my stance is. And I am not bedeviling Lamar Jackson by any stretch of the imagination. I think he's so much better than what I thought he was going to be. And but it's stupid when you feel like you can go directly and criticize one person. And, we're talking about a 1 week slice of life here in the NFL. We should be talking about these games one at a time as they happen. And the more that it happens, then we have a collective picture we can put together. But yeah, when there's 50-mile-an-hour gusts of wind, that's not the game that I'm going to judge a quarterback on how he throws the ball.
And I actually thought he did a pretty good job throwing the ball considering the conditions. And that's where, people say his arm is almost too strong. He zips it a little too hard. In those conditions, that's what you need, because that wind, if it was Josh Allen and you just let that float, that ball is going to be 20 yards, the other way.
It's
9 dropped passes.
Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
It's totally unfair to Baker. Now, if he comes out against the Texans and shits the bed, then yeah, you've got a cause for concern there, and you got to wonder, okay, where in the fuck is Baker Mayfield? But for one game against, what is I will say it, the Raiders are a playoff contender, so are the Browns, so we're in a year where there's more playoff teams. Give him a pass, especially after what he did last week. Started out like shit and then played like the world's greatest quarterback ever. Give the kid a pass.
It all comes out in the wash. And I'll give you an example. There's Michael Jordan and the Bulls, and then there's John Stockton and Karl Malone of the Jazz, all right? You can say what you want when it happened. All right. But when it collectively year after year happened, you can pretty well say the same thing about Dan Marino. You can say the same thing about Dan Fouts. You can say a lot of things based on a big picture. And there is no big picture for guys who are in their second or third year of playing NFL football, especially when the 3-year guy has had 3 different coaches, 3 different schemes, and the guy with the Ravens is dealing with really a person who's challenged offensively. Harbaugh's not your guy if you're looking for an inventive offense. And right now in the short run, if you're just going to be myopic about this, so far, Lamar Jackson hasn't proven he can win the big game. Do I think he can? I don't see why not. If you keep getting to the big game and you don't win, that's when the story starts becoming a story. But
Jim Kelly?
Jim Kelly and the Buffalo Bills would be a real good example of a team that just couldn't get over the hump. And there are many examples of this over the course of professional athletics. But, these people, because of ratings, advertisement, they're trying to make separate pictures out of every week. And they're making an end conclusion based on 1 week of activity. And they were going to say that about Baker no matter what after he made them look stupid by pulling out the Cincinnati win. So, there's nothing that these talking heads hate more than having their nose rubbed in dog shit after they say something that's absolutely untrue, unfounded, and then the following week the guy comes through and does great, But nobody's saying nothing, again, nobody's saying nothing about the New England Patriots, who are now 2-5, and Cam Newton fumbled a game away. Nobody's saying shit about that. I don't hear Brandon Marshall talking about Superman and how at 31 years of age, he can't do shit anymore, and he never accomplished the ultimate goal in the game. Don't talk to me about Cam Newton being a great quarterback. No, he was a good, great physical specimen, and he got hurt. And like so many guys who get hurt, who are great, RG3, guys who get hurt, who are physical specimens, you got to have some more, all right, to get through. Give Ben Roethlisberger credit. He comes back and he wins. There's something to be said about that, even though I don't like the guy. But the fact is, he's got the Claypools. He's got Schuster, Smith. He's got...
and he's got a front office that continuously rebuilds the defense.
Defense, that's right. And, what's going to happen in Baltimore is people are going to sit back and say, well, we're getting all this hype on Lamar Jackson, and it's not fair on the quarterback. But up to a point, it's not fair. But if the defense continues to play extremely well and the offense doesn't get off the ground, I mean, it's really troubling to see a team running for 200 yards so that their running game did everything it was supposed to do. And when it fell on the responsibilities of the quarterback to complete passes, he could not do it. And that becomes an issue, all right? But that's only over protracted time. They lost to a Steelers team that's very hot in a very close game. The Cleveland Browns lost to a team that is no better or no worse than they are. That's my belief.
And that'd be a very interesting game in a dome, neutral field, whatever, or even Raiders Stadium, since they don't have fans. Be really, really interesting.
Well, and again, like I said, the Browns could be described as efficient at their best. At their worst, discombobulated, inconsistent, and defensively inept.
And how about the fact that 2 defensive players that the Browns that would improve them defensively went today to, Quan Alexander to the Saints, and whatever his name went from the Chargers to the Titans for like a 5th and a 6th round pick.
Yeah.
Andrew Berry, that's just stuff that you got to do.
Well, I mean, the thing here is that I don't think that there's enough patchwork to be done here. I just don't see the people. I mean, honestly, if Greedy Williams were healthy, how do we know? I mean, I hope we'd be better than what we are, but quite honestly, we've had so many defensive backs over the course of the last 10 years. I mean, who never amounted to a hill of beans, not just here, but anywhere. And this is one of the worst groups I've ever seen. But there's so many holes to fill. It's foolish to think that in one trade deadline, you're going to get it done. I think from the fans' perspective, they want to see something that there is an intent to get better. And if you sit on your hands, you don't do anything, you look like Paul fucking Dolan.
You could my thing is at least like you could somewhat put a Band-Aid over the issue to the offseason. You know, if you went out and you got a Miles Jack, Deion Jones come in play linebacker, you know, that's not going to fix your problem long term.
But at what cost?
Well, you know, the Browns didn't want to pay Joe Schobert 10 a year. And Miles Jack is, in my opinion, way better than Joe Schobert. So the question there is, hey, you know, you need a linebacker. You didn't want to pay Schobert. Would you want to pay Miles Jack?
I mean, it gets harder and harder to explain because we don't. First of all, we don't deal with Jimmy Haslam. Second of all, we don't know what the financial situation is. We don't know what the master plan is. If you can pick up somebody, renting somebody isn't going to help you for the future. Something. Right now, I'm starting to agree with this guy here a lot. Oh, Canada. Yeah. Believe me, I lived in Flint, Michigan. I used to flip over to the border all the time and hung out in Toronto. It's a lot more chill in Canada than it is. I don't mean temperature wise. I mean, attitude wise than it is in America. And
it is a nice city.
Well, let me tell you something. The racism in Michigan, where I was in Flint, you go across, into Windsor, you go across Detroit into Windsor, Ontario, it all go away. It wasn't that there are black people who go right across just like white people go across, but the Canadians didn't care. The Canadians were cool. In Michigan, man, it was just a festering cesspool of racism. My God. But, I owned radio stations there, and God, you'd play songs. I mean, I thought they were going to behead me when I played Two Live Crew. Fucking Luther Campbell. I mean, before Luther Campbell really got into trouble. I mean, they literally banned Two Live Crew from coming to do a performance for our radio station on a Halloween show. And it was ridiculous. And as it turned out, Luther couldn't make it anyway. And I don't know that Luther could have made it in any circumstance. But they canceled, and that kind of went that way. And that was going to be a show in downtown Flint, Michigan. So I've seen it all, and Canada's a lot more chill.
Hey, speaking of Michigan, they just lost to the worst team in the Big Ten.
Look, I mean, Harbaugh, that Harbaugh, Jimmy boy, he's erratic, man. He's of erratic temperament, and how
does he keep his job?
It's a good question.
His two biggest rivals, Ohio State and Michigan State, and you could throw in Penn State. You don't win. How do you keep your job?
Because he won a Rose Bowl in 1987.
Yeah.
Actually, no, he lost the Rose Bowl.
Cooper was at Ohio State. How did Cooper keep his job that long? It's like Michigan has been a non-entity. Who was the guy they hired from West Virginia to coach the team? That didn't go anywhere. Who's the best quarterback they had? Elvis Gerbach. He was the best quarterback that they had.
That's the thing.
Well, Tom Brady was a third stringer at Michigan.
Yeah.
That should tell you something.
The quarterback they got right now, Hilton, he's actually pretty good. Like, he's not bad. The team just sucks. Which is hilarious because they've always said they just need a quarterback.
Hey, Chad, how you doing? Another good old face. So, it's
Oh, and before we get too far in, shout out to Rick May again, because he was the only one that picked the Raiders to win.
Yeah, he had the conviction, man, the guts. Yeah, and that's no guts, no glory. What can I tell you? Yeah, and that is the bottom line. But getting better, Alistair, is not only a matter of the weekly effort that's put in and efficiency of the team, but it's on the front office to get a whole lot better. It's on the ownership to get a whole lot better and to bring better players in here. Because as much as I really felt that Stefanski had a bad day, you know, I'm not going to judge him the same way I'm not going to judge Baker Mayfield 3 systems. You know, guy shows he can do things well, and then he comes back and he's inconsistent. He's a first-year coach. And I want to see, with full preparation and a better roster, what this coach can do. It's the lack of talent and depth in this roster that is holding the Browns back right now. It is not Baker Mayfield, and it is not Kevin Stefanski. Let's be clear that we don't have the kind of roster that's necessary to be a special or elite, or even, in my mind, a playoff team.
And you can't tell me that the media doesn't have something to do with it. This is still a young roster. It was really young last year. It's still very young. I mean, they didn't add a whole lot of veteran pieces. And these guys, I mean, the truth is they're all over social media. They hear it. They see it. They know what people are saying about them. I mean, they can say it doesn't matter, but it's the truth. They are seeing it. And then you got local Cleveland guys. I don't know if you even know, but I don't know, this Dolan Fox show on 92.3, whatever. And their whole show was dedicated to hating on Baker again today.
Yeah, I mean, this is how you get attention, you get ratings, you know. And Chad, think of it this way, my friend. It's 8 weeks in and you still care. And when was that the last time that happened with the Browns? I mean, usually by 8 games, you know, I'm like, the only reason people are tuned into my post-game shows is to hear me go hysterical and do my Psycho Man act. I mean, quite honestly, this is unprecedented in recent history. I mean, we've been 0-8, you know, that this hurt the fans shows that the fans care. And if you care, that's more than what I've had the last several years, to be honest. I've been
we were done after like week 4 last year, weren't we?
Yeah.
Some of us after week 1.
And honestly, I was done with this years ago because it was just like, this is like we're adrift at sea. We have no prime directive. We just keep going from year to year to year, you know, and with no improvements. And
well, at least we got the uniforms right this time. That's one positive. At least we got the uniforms right. We'll lose, but we'll lose in style.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the comments here. Somebody giving you your props here, you know, and that is the truth right now. You know, hitting the lottery is a great thing, but nobody hits the lottery every time. And what we said in the off season was, you know, we got this guy who's a first-year coach and we got this pandemic and there's no practice. I mean, hell, this could really be fugly, you know? And now we've done better. Holes to fill. We recognized what the chances were of abject disaster in our one-loss record. And to think that we would be at our bye and still be competing for a playoff spot, that would surprise the hell out of people. So, you know, we have holes to fill. That's obvious. What's equally obvious is that there are a lot of teams that have a lot of holes to fill. It's not just the Browns who are inept drafters. There's a lot of teams who are, take the 49ers. They can't get out of their own way with injuries this year. So Garoppolo is now gone. That high ankle sprain he had, he never healed from. And that's the dreaded, why they call it the dreaded high ankle sprain. And then Kittle is gone for the season now, they're saying, because of a broken.
Oh, crap.
That's right.
I had them starting on fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, he broke a bone in his foot. Was it Liz Frank? We don't know that, but we begin to wonder. It's a bad situation that can hit from, we have an incomplete roster. Injuries can wipe other teams out. I don't think Garoppolo is a great quarterback to begin with, but when you have to go to the second string guy, and it seems like half of your important players are down.
You think they'll trade for Fitzpatrick?
They're going to have to do something.
Fill
Mullen's
in.
not going to carry that team.
Hey, they might go after Darnold. That might be a spot.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is they have other positions covered, but quarterback's a huge hole there. So there are a lot of
Well,
teams.
and look at the Cowboys. They're down string.
Yeah.
Third
Ben
and fourth
DiNucci.
string.
And they got what's his name? Garrett Gilbert. That's who they got behind DiNucci. And
Yeah,
they
he's
might end
fourth
up starting.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I'm reading comments here. These are comments that are coming in for, as far as available bodies to fill in positions.
I'd love Justin Simmons, but it ain't happening.
That's not happening. And not only that, but anybody that you do bring in, you're going to have to teach a whole new system too. It's just not going to make a big difference this year. And the reason this has happened is just because we're incomplete. And this is because of ownership.
And that's what I was trying to get across to Fish is if you have to give up draft capital for some guy who's only going to be around for 8 games this season or 7 games this season, what the fuck have you've shot yourself in the ass twice.
Right. Tony, you're on the show, right?
Yeah, I'm back now.
All right, good.
I was backstage for the longest time. I'm like, did Moo forget I was here?
No,
He was smoking the cigar backstage.
Buddy, hell no.
He was doing his best Milton Berle impersonation.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of Burrow, how about the Bengals beating the Titans?
Well,
Again, the Titans are tight, consistent, but average consistent. They gut out wins and they can come up short. They don't have, if you're waiting for some of these players, take Ryan Tannehill, we'll use an example. I mean, yeah, he's so much better than he was with Miami, but nobody's been good with Miami, really. And, these teams are not elite.
Well, that was Miami with Adam Gase. And look what he's done with New York. So, I mean, you can't really apples to apples say that was the problem.
Same thing with Devontae Parker, too. With and without Gase, 2 different players.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes players don't play up to their potential for a reason, and I'm sure that's probably the case with some people who play for Hugh
Or
Jackson.
you get stuck with a Freddie Kitchens. You just get stuck with a shitty head coach.
And then this, there are a lot of teams who are, caught up in the COVID mess, injuries, all of this. And it does kind of, it wears down. And a lot of times it's veteran players who just don't feel it. And they're not playing with the type of venom that they would normally play with. Now, Rick is right on this. The Titans are the prototypical sneak into the playoffs kind of team. This is not a dominant team. And what I was going to tell Browns fans, as bad as you feel today, we beat the team and came back and beat the team that beat the Titans. So, it isn't all horrible news any given Sunday. I mean, the Browns can beat people, but the Browns can lose to people too. I think Cincinnati has shown improvement, and I think that they, are starting to put some things together. And the Titans are not an offensive juggernaut, and that defense didn't have to deal with as much as perhaps playing a higher powered offensive team. So, you know,
Hey Moo, I don't know if you've seen, but Stephon Gilmore has put his house up for sale in New England or wherever, and he's saying all offer is in by the 4th or the 3rd, whatever. You think I think he's gone. I don't know where he's going. You think he ends up here? A chance.
I don't know, but I can tell you this. I mean, if you put that, he must know he's gone, because after writing that, he is gone. Bob Kraft and Bill Belichick ain't going to put up with that shit. But again, it's about, I mean, everyone's worried about the quarterback. And what I'm worried about is the defense. Very hard. You know, you can win a Super Bowl. It's been proven by the Bears back when in '85. You can win with a defense. All right.
Hey, the Eagles with Nick Foles.
That's right. You can win with defense. You know, it may not be exciting. It may be rather pedestrian looking sometimes when all your highlights are defensive highlights. But the Ravens consistently win with defense, and they're trying to bring a young second-year quarterback along. And Pittsburgh beat them with Roethlisberger only throwing for 182 yards. Let's be clear. It wasn't that he bombardier them.
Pittsburgh just got a new linebacker to fill in for Devin Bush.
Yeah, from the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, people are active around the league looking to get better, and the Cleveland Browns are going to have to keep up pace. But the way they have to get better predominantly is through the draft and through free agency. And, you know, if we can at least keep winning at this pace, if we go 9-7 or 10-6 or whatever we could possibly do, that might give some enticement to say, hey, look, we're moving in the right direction. We can bring some people on board. But I don't want to rent nobody. This year isn't the prime consideration. The prime consideration is we have to get better as a whole football team and not rely on a weak schedule or not rely on a first-year quarterback competitor, Cincinnati Bengals team, who now is suddenly getting better. You know, we beat them. They beat the Titans. The Titans beat, you know how it goes.
It's 1 week to another. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah, renting somebody this year, it honestly doesn't make sense because, renting somebody to make the playoffs. I mean, what good is that? That's like,
the good news is though, if the Browns want to trade for somebody, they do have cap room to work with.
yeah.
So, I mean, that's the whole question: is the contract situation? Is this a guy you want to build with? But at least, like, a lot of teams are really, really got a thin cap. At least the Browns have some room to work with there.
You know, the other thing is the rental concept from impatient fans. You know, I'm gonna say something, and younger fans aren't going to know what I'm talking about. I'll just say Bartolo Colon to the Montreal Expos. All right. The fact of the matter is that, you know, this is the Expos' one chance to make the playoffs. We're going to get a frontline pitcher that we need, a frontline starter. And they gave away Grady Sizemore. Who else did they give us in that deal? There are a bunch of players that they gave us. The guy, Brandon Phillips, that Eric Wedge ran out of town.
Did they give Cliff Lee in that deal too?
Yeah, right. I mean, it was an abject disaster for the Expos. They traded away their future team, in essence, and a foundation for a rental, a guy who just get him into the playoffs one time. That can't be where we're at.
And then in the offseason, didn't he sign with Boston?
Yeah, I mean, it was a rental.
So they totally had nothing out of that deal except a bunch of salaries off the books.
Right. And that's the game that the Dolans play. You may not like it. The Rays are far better at it than the Dolans is. You know, you let Lindor go where he's going to go. And, you know, you make trades and you make incremental trades to try to keep yourself competitive at a certain payroll level. This is not what we're looking at in Cleveland. We're looking about trying to get smarter, drafting better players. And Alistair is correct. I mean, we need a better secondary. Plain and simple. We need linebackers. Plain and simple. And I'll tell you something else. Ogunjobi scored out at a 29 rating for the game, and he is disappearing. He is shrinking by the minute. And
he seems like he can't be a run stuffer. He's pretty decent pass rushing, but not good overall.
yeah, well, I mean, that an interior lineman's got to be able to take up space, and got to be able to jam things up. It's not happening. So it's more than just the linebackers in the secondary. I mean, your future isn't with Olivier Vernon and with Sheldon Richardson and with Larry Ogunjobi. We have to rebuild the defense. And that doesn't happen in one season or 2 seasons. It's a problem. The offense should get better because of efficiency, of having health, the running backs, and getting some chemistry between some of the younger receivers and the quarterback. We should be better off there, but on the defense, man, we got to have bodies that are better bodies than what we have, and we got to draft better. And I don't know any other way of putting it. We've not gotten good free agency guys. The veterans who come here are just kind of finishing up. They're coming from places like the Giants where they were losing, and it's like, what the fuck, this is a payday. And they play like it's just a payday. And that's not a good thing.
Not really speaking of, but kind of getting away from the Browns here. Did you see the fucking insanity coming out of Green Bay?
AJ Dillon.
AJ Dillon tested positive before the game for COVID-19, and they let him play anyways.
No, I didn't. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Tested positive for COVID-19 prior to the game, and he played the game anyways.
And of course, it's a team with no ownership, so you can't fucking find them.
Is that a published truth?
That was all on Twitter this morning, and it was on Green Bay Sports Talk Radio. Now, the team has refuted the fact that he tested positive before the game, but you would think that because they didn't test today, they only tested before the game, and you would think that they would have had the test back right away. You know what I mean? They're not going to test a guy. You're not going to test a player and not let him play without knowing what the test results are.
They gave up Randy Johnson. Can you imagine?
By the way,
but at the time that they made that trade, Mark Langston was the better pitcher. He had a lot more control than Randy Johnson.
And same thing could be said about Sandy Koufax. He couldn't throw strikes, and then all of a sudden, you know how it goes. Left-handers, the history of left-handed pitchers, they mature later than righties. I don't know why that is. I have no idea, but that's what they always said. And man, Randy Johnson, when he started throwing strikes, God help your soul, that thing coming at you. Left-handed hitters, I'd see them literally stain their trousers, man. Just
Can we get Njoku out of town before tomorrow at 4? Please. I don't want to have to watch him drop another pass.
Yeah, it's likely that he'll be gone, and a lot of it, I think, has to do,
if you see him in a shopping center, if you see him at the supermarket, start tossing him baked bean cans underhand. Wow, you really can't catch anything, can you?
I think we can get talent. The thing is can we efficiently evaluate what will work with our system? The thing that makes Pittsburgh so devastating is that they have a scheme and they know how to pick players to their scheme that have a specific skill set. We just seem to be, wanting to bring in OBJ,
but
and we never conservative short pass offensive scheme.
They never establish a scheme to draft to, though. They draft to whatever was last year's model, and this year's model. Well,
Denzel Ward is his number one skill set has always been man on man, and he's been thrown into so many different schemes. It's hard to tell what he even is anymore, or what he even can be. I think he still can be really, really good, but so much inconsistency.
Can you imagine what they would have done with Deion Sanders? You would have had turf toe 3 years sooner.
Yeah, and again, all of these things. I mean, we haven't had a consistent scheme, so you're drafting players predicated on what? And sometimes it was just if Jimmy Haslam had an erection, he'd go after Johnny Manziel. I mean, this is the kind of blind pot shotting. And the thing that's so funny that Haslam says that he's the great defender of analytics, yet he was the one who wanted Manziel. It's to me ridiculous. You got to have a plan. You got to stick to the plan. And you're right, Valtoria. That's a huge problem. And hopefully we can start understanding what we are. And I will say this: getting an Austin Hooper made a whole lot of sense to me. And getting a Harrison Bryant made sense to me because of the way the scheme is and what we're trying to accomplish. They both have good hands. They're both willing blockers, and they're possession kind of guys, and they're the kinds of guys who are going to find the flag and the chains, and they're going to get first downs. That's it.
And break tackles after they catch the ball.
Yeah, little yards after catch, and that's what you got. But what we need to do is we have to decide what we are. If you want to become a press coverage team, you got to have press coverage capable people. And, you drafted Greedy Williams, and the big rap on Greedy Williams is that he couldn't tackle. And there was nothing about Greedy Williams that I saw prior to his injury that made him stand out to me. We don't know what we have, but we decide what we want to be.
Speaking of Greedy, just take this for what it's worth. I did see he posted on his Instagram story of him, like the big heavy weight balls. You know what I'm talking about? I forget what they're called. Anyway, he was like
medicine balls.
Yeah, medicine balls. He was throwing them off the wall, and his looked a lot better. I don't know when that means he'll be back or where he's at, because it is a nerve injury, but it was good to at least seeing him doing something,
Well, it would have been better than what we have out there. But, again, until we decide what we are right now, we look like a prevent defense. That's what we look like to me.
Njoku couldn't catch the clap if he lifted it. Fucking Rick.
Hey, are we home against the Texans?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So that's going to be another possible weather situation.
I think the Raiders were the kickoff of like a 4-game homestand or something.
Yeah, they're at home against the Texans, at home against the Eagles, at Jacksonville, at Tennessee, home against the Ravens, at New York, and home against Pittsburgh.
Do they show weather this far out? Is that something we can look up?
You might be able to. Let me.
Well, and here's this week-to-week kind of nonsense. A headline: Trevor Lawrence no longer Heisman Trophy favorite. This is the kind of thing. I mean, look, I watched that game, and I'd say that his absence really damn near cost Clemson against a sub-mediocre Boston College team.
Projected.
But they're scrappy. That's a scrappy team.
Yeah, well.
Early projected weather for Sunday, November 15th, 50 degrees, partly sunny, winds 17 miles an hour, gusts to 30. It's going to be another run game.
Hey, well, at least maybe we'll have Chubb back. At least maybe we can hit the 1-2 punch.
I mean, Alabama quarterback Mac Jones now and Justin Fields are the two top candidates for the Heisman. And so it goes as we keep micro-dissecting things. Dan Mullen, who has instantly become, ever since his stupid we want to put 90,000 fans into the swamp comment down here in Florida, received a reprimand from the SEC because of that massive brawl that went on. he ran out on the field and kept trying to incite fans. He has some kind of a major malfunction. He tried to tell the press afterwards he was trying to get the players off the field, but he was clearly being restrained by his assistants. And once they got off the field, he came back on the field in front of the fans and started waving his arms like a fucking lunatic. All a bunch of shit. Marlon Humphreys, by the way, tested positive for COVID. Ravens fans, your day got worse. And here's the last thing I wanted to...
he won't be able to hold everybody all over the field.
Right, exactly. Here's the last thing I wanted to say here. And this is something to keep your eyes on. And, when we talk about how politics can affect professional sports, and I'm not talking about kneeling and protests and things of that nature. The Supreme Court said today that an antitrust challenge against the NFL and the way the league sells the rights to telecasts of pro football games can move forward. All right? This is a group of businesses and individuals who say they purchased packages of games from DirecTV. A lower court ruled that the NFL's contract with DirecTV may limit competition in violation of federal law. The arrangement has been in place for more than 25 years. Brett Kavanaugh, the justice, wrote that in rejecting the NFL's appeal at this early stage of the lawsuit, the high court was not necessarily endorsing the claims of the plaintiffs. In sum, the defendants, the NFL, its teams, and DirecTV have substantial arguments on the law. If the defendants do not prevail at summary judgment or at trial, they may raise those legal arguments again in a new appeal to the Supreme Court. But the thing is that in a real, honest-to-God, fair world, okay, in a truly capitalistic system, we wouldn't have a Supreme Court that could possibly argue in favor of the NFL having one company delivering the games without giving fans a choice. And this could change a lot of things. For one thing, you know how many people would want to fuck AT&T and DirecTV up the ass by taking these games away? It would mean more money for the owners, okay? What the reason is that we have no antitrust laws for certain businesses and we do for others. I really hope that at some point DirecTV loses this thing and fans will have at least the effort to watch games in multiple places, for God's sakes.
Is this just the Sunday ticket, or is this like you can't get the local game thing?
No, I mean this is clearly about packages for the Sunday ticket. I mean, all of this is, I mean, it's crazy that it's been going this way for as long as it has. And DirecTV has just been jacking their prices up, and there is no good argument in a capitalistic system that it should be this way. And, the thing that's crazy is we're loading up the Supreme Court with conservatives, and these conservatives say that they want to get behind really what is true capitalism, and that is competition. So this should have been done already. And the fact that the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh, came out and said that, that doesn't mean that these guys are going to prevail, and kind of poo-pooing the whole thing. It's just another indication of how companies are controlling the government instead of the other way around. And and I do have a problem with AT&T. If it was possible, they brought DirecTV down lower. And God forbid, if they lost DirecTV, lost NFL Sunday ticket, that whole DirecTV thing would collapse. It is a dated infrastructure. And believe me, there's so many streaming methodologies today that you don't need that thing on your roof.
I was just going to say, it's too bad that they don't have a streaming service brought to you by the NFL where you could say, hey, this is my favorite team. I'll, spend, I don't know, $10 a month, and then I can get all the games available, including on the NFL network.
MLB does the.
If the teams were really smart, they would do what Steinbrenner did, which is start his own fucking network, the Yankee Entertainment Service.
Yeah, yes, and again,
and that network also carries Jets games, I believe.
Yeah, for me, it's not such a big deal because I watch other games because I do a podcast. But for the average fan who doesn't have the money, they're jacking this thing up, man. I mean, the Sunday ticket is now up over $300.
And if you broke it down by, hey, I just want to watch, if you could select like the teams you want to watch, like, you live there in Florida, so you want to watch the Browns, but throw in the Bucks too. You could add that and create your own package. That'd be perfect.
Yeah, but again, what's perfect for the consumer isn't really what's perfect for big business, and this is what we are hoping. And it's not going to change in either administration, by the way, because it's happening in the Trump administration. It happened in the Obama administration. It happened in the Bush administration. This has been going on for ages, and so
25 years goes all the way back to Clinton.
That's right. And these are illustrations of what's wrong with our system and how we're not truly a capitalistic system, because it's all about, what it's about now is having a great wellspring of ideas and then selling it off to a big company who kills it immediately. That's what it's about the individual guy getting wealthy, selling out to the big companies who squelch technology so that we're falling behind. We have a brain drain in this country, and it's really bad. And it's why our research and development on the pharmaceutical level is so poor. It's why we're going to be waiting and waiting and waiting. This, believe me, a vaccine is not weeks away. These companies can't come up with new antibiotics to fight infections, folks. They haven't developed a new antibiotic in decades. Do you realize that?
Hey, Moo, is that your new dog behind you? Is that your new one you just got?
That's Topaz the Wolf. That's him.
Oh.
He's a great fur bus. But at any rate, yeah. Thanks everybody for tuning in to this edition of Moohead Radio, and thank you, Tony and Derek and Brian. I
seen him walk in behind you. I wondered if that was him.
That's him and all of his furry glory. He got bathed today, so he's a sweet smelling hound. Back again on Friday. We don't have a game to talk about. We'll talk about other teams in our division and then other NFL games, and anything that comes across the trade deadline. We'll be covering that as well.
Maybe I'll join you guys. Maybe I won't. The city of Minneapolis might burn to fucking ashes if fucking Donald Trump wins tomorrow night. So
I was gonna say I've seen.
Yeah, they're already announced that they're gonna take the streets in Minneapolis, and all the businesses have boarded up.
I'll tell you one thing: if Donald Trump wins and they announce it tomorrow, then I would take to the streets, because there ain't no way that anybody's going to be announced a winner on this.
It'll probably be months.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a long fucking time. And if the numbers don't look good, you know that Trump has already hired scores of attorneys, and they're going over recounts for every fucking state that is leaning slightly.
I think this son of a bitch is going to be one way or another, whether it's Biden wins or Trump wins, it's going to be held up in lawsuits for.
Oh, it's good. But that keeps Trump in power longer now, doesn't it?
Yeah, because you can't run a country without.
On January 20th, you could see Nancy Pelosi being sworn in if it goes too
long.
Fucking
we don't kill ourselves.
No, I mean,
you thought there'd be fucking assassination. Somebody would fucking kill that out.
That's incentive. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll be back again on Friday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastriots. Good night.